It is never. So my small.
Getting ready to begin. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Commission on Children and Families meeting today. Today is Monday, May 5th, 2025, and the time is 10:02, and we'll now call this meeting to order. We now begin with the roll call. Staff, please conduct the roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Boyd, Commissioner Cooper, Commissioner Eddy, Commissioner Flowers,
Here.
Commissioner Gale, Commissioner Jacinto, here, Commissioner James,
Here.
Dunn, Pitt, Commissioner Makowski,
Here.
Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Romero, Pitt, Commissioner Ruiz,
Present.
Chair Gaskins, Vice Chair Chandler Cole, Vice Chair Vega.
Here.
Here we have a quorum.
Thank you. We begin today's meeting with the county's land acknowledgement and labor acknowledgement. Vice Chair Dr. Chandler Cole, can you please read these acknowledgements?
Yes, LA County Land Acknowledgement. I'm a little congested. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Keats, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect for elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, to reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands, dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Bernardino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians, Keith Nation, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles County /County Native American Indian Commission website at lanaic.lacounty.gov. On our labor acknowledgement, it can recognize and acknowledge the labor upon which our country, state, and county are built. Remember that our country was built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to the United States from the African continent, and recognize the continued contribution of their survivors. We also acknowledge all immigrant and indigenous labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples who contributed to the building of the country and continue to serve within our labor force. Recognize that our country is continuously defined, supported, and built upon by oppressed communities and peoples. We acknowledge labor inequities and the shared responsibility for combating oppressive systems in our daily work.
Now move to item 2, 2449. Do we have any commissioners online? Thank you. Move to item number 3, minutes for the April 7, 2025 meeting. Do commissioners have any comments regarding the minutes for approval? Oh, do we make a motion?
It's for the, to
Approve the minutes?
approve minutes.
Commissioner Flowers? In favor?
Aye.
Any abstention? Aye. Opposition? The motion is approved. Is there any public comment for item number?
No one raising their hand. Motion carries, sorry.
And we'll move on to item number 4, the chair's report. So good to be back with you all. I missed you very much. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to our incredible vice chairs here and our staff, and then Director Armand and everyone for keeping the commission moving during my absence, and your steady hands and commitment. I'm really proud that much continue to move forward with our priorities for the year, and looking forward to hearing more updates from some of the subcommittees today. But most importantly, all of you sprung into action and reached out and so much love and support and kindness during the fires. And so I just really thank you. I'm not going to cry. So I just want to say that this community is very special. It wasn't lost on me that the last time I was here, you were coming back, Commissioner Boyd, and we were talking about how important it is to be in spaces together with people moving forward and trying to see the good in the world. And so I'm just really grateful to be back with you all. As you know, these are really challenging, profoundly challenging times in our country. And we're seeing proposals out of Washington this week that are going to have, really devastating impacts at the federal and state level on the people and the children that we care so much about, and come to this commission to help make sure that especially those in the child welfare system and system of all children have what they need, and the risks are at stake in terms of the mental health supports, the placements, keeping families together, having trauma-informed care, making sure families who are impacted by poverty and housing crisis don't fall into the system is more profound than ever before. And so I'm just really grateful to be in this work with you all, because I know you're getting up every day thinking about how can we ensure that our children and families in LA County have what they need, even in this moment, in the face of all the challenges ahead. And there's no better people than I want to be doing this work with. And I know that we will continue to have our collective strength to move forward, regardless of what, policies and funding cuts there will be, that I know people will be stepping up and stepping in, and we'll be thinking about how to do that for the people in the county. So thank you for your dedication and for your support. And if there's any public comment or comments,
No one raising their hand, Chair.
all right. Well, we are excited to have Lisa Mandel, the Chief of Staff for the Department of Children and Family Services, come and share a report today. Welcome.
Thank you. Been here yet since I went to DCFS, so it's a pleasure. It's like I'm coming full circle. I've been around way too long is what I'm trying to say. Good morning, commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. Really, it is. I'm here on behalf of Director Nichols, who is on a much deserved and needed rest for a week on vacation. So it's my pleasure. I'm Chief of Staff at DCFS. I have been with the department now 2.5 years, and I could say it's been a steep learning curve in a really interesting way, but child welfare is my passion, has been for decades. So I was one of the handful that started Children's Law Center many years ago. Left there after 20 years and went to work for Supervisor Zevi Arslowski as his child welfare deputy. And after that, stayed with Supervisor Sheila Kuehl as their chief of staff. So now I'm back at DCFS, or in the department, and doing child welfare, which has always been my passion. So it is a pleasure to be here. Just a few updates. We've managed to get through the strike. And I have to say our department fared very well. It was a very cooperative effort. We have a really good working relationship with the union, and these are our employees. These are our colleagues. And we respect their right to work. We had one RA that was strike lines making waffles for his staff. So it was challenging. I mean, our main concern was the 24-hour hotline, right? Making sure we were able to answer calls. People stepped up. We negotiated line passes. Everyone showed. Really did not. Good effort. And I thought the turnout was spectacular, quite frankly. Really, really proud of our people. So hopefully they're still at the bargaining table. Hopefully we can reach settlement soon and forward. As we said, we embraced our colleagues, and it was not a negative experience at all. Speaking of negative experiences, I'm sure you're aware that the board approved the $4 billion settlement. That was a hard one. I have to say, I don't want to disparage other county departments, but about a third of the cases came from DCFS. The balance, most of them were probation cases, unfortunately. We did our due diligence. We went through all of our files. We were out of, I think it was 2,700. So the universe, as we know it now, is about 10,700 plaintiffs. Of that universe, we had about 2,600. out of those that we could identify, named staff, we had about 45. And files, most were already retired or gone. Couldn't find any backup documentation. Some of these cases are so old, unfortunately. One employee that may or may not be the employee name is a very common name. Doing our internal investigation now, but don't really have any concerns. There've been no issues with that employee, so it may just be the wrong name, but just in an abundance of caution, he is sitting on desk duty until we clear. Good news, though, this is something that we've been talking about a lot, is our practice has changed dramatically, even before McLaren closed. Since then, I mean, I'm going to highlight some of our accomplishments. Just the fact, the way we conduct our work, we really do things differently. I remember going to McLaren Hall and visiting clients there, and it was awful. I mean, it was not a good place. It was a good day when we closed it in 2003. The practice, even before it closed, you know, California was one of the first states to allow children or to mandate that children are represented by counsel. So that happened in 1990. That's when we created Children's Law Center, in order that there were more eyes and ears and connections to children. So that was one of the first things that happened. But, you know, system, and this is not just LA County and the state, has shifted from congregate care. So there are no longer these mega, you know, housing units for a lot of children. I mean, our RTPs are about the largest that we can get, and it's not a bad thing. I really think that's a good shift. The state is very, very concerned about congregate care. And I think moving to foster homes and resource families, I should say, is a good step. But I'm also proud to say this department has increased our number of relative placements exponentially. Most of our youth that are not able to remain at home, at least temporarily, are placed with relatives. And we can, you know, kin care is really the best option because you still maintain connections to your family. You have more of an impetus to allow visitation and support families. And children fare better when they're with families. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So our upfront family finding, our practice has changed dramatically. And our numbers, as you probably know, of youth in care have dropped significantly. We're the lowest we've ever been. I remember when I first started practicing, we were over 60,000 foster care. It was horrifying. It's amazing and it's a good thing and it's done safely. And I know Brandon's been here and talked about watching the numbers go down, but let's make sure children are safe. The other thing that I think is really, really important is the increase. I see the wraparound services, the home-based services, things that we're doing to bring services to youth, more eyes, more ears, more connections, people that youth need. Representation, foster youth bill of rights. That is something that our workers have to keep reminding, and we have to remind our workers to remind, something that we feel very strongly about. And again, legal representation coupled with a strong bill of rights has helped change the dynamic significantly. Let me look at some other, I could spend all day doing this. The Ombudsman's Office through Auditor Controller, a place where neutral reporting body is significant. FERS is the immediate hotline response when there's crises. Safety practice, child and family team meetings. For practice, that has been the most significant change in the way social work is practiced, quite frankly. It is more of an engagement with the youth, with the families, with supports, friends, neighbors. It is a way for social workers to really be present and interact with them. There's more mandated reporting. I mean, I think we probably are more familiar than anybody of all the changes. But the thing that I really, really think is important, there are new initiatives, the mandated supporting. I think that's really critical. We have to do it right. I think it's the right way to go instead of just targeting. But our removals are done in a more thoughtful way. If have to do it in a really concerted, we have to have a concerted effort to make sure they're safe. right? But in a way where they're supported and family is not excluded. I think we're on the right path. The county, usually departments, when they enter in litigation and come up with a settlement, have to come up with a corrective action plan. Well, we've had one, but the county is taking a position where we're going to do a countywide corrective action plan. So I don't think I've ever seen one where it's that broad, but it will include all the county departments that have been named and are part of this litigation. I think it's a good approach because it's bigger than just one department. And I think the county needs to come forward and come up with a plan that works. One of the things that is being bandied about, and we're not sure how that would work for us, is having a line, a way for people to report if they suspect child abuse by a county employee. And there's some discussion as to whether or not the hotline would be the right place for that to happen, but it's that trying to figure out how to make that happen because that's not our mandate, but we also don't want to lose those calls. Maybe there's a way to triage the number over to auditor controller or OCI or HR. We're working that out. And the county, as I said, through the CEO's office is coming up with some ideas. But I think I welcome that. Everyone will have a voice in that and we'll see how that goes, but it's going to take a little time. And I'm glad we're not rushing to just come up and put a Band-Aid on or say, look what we've done, but really be thoughtful about how we go forward. So that's AB 218. Should I stop for questions or do you want me to just keep rolling or because I can go.
Maybe you should
Go and then you can ask.
And then we'll ask questions.
Really the last thing that I wanted to bring to you, and I thank you to the staff and Armin for, I sent this out late last night. We are entering into or have entered into a program with YMCA, the Greater LA. It is spectacular. Veronique Ross, the director of the system, has been instrumental in helping us put this together. But the LA, Metropolitan LAY has agreed, and we partnered with them to create free membership, foster youth from age 12 to 26. And it's not just for membership, but it is programming, highlights. We toured several of the Ys, the Weingart in particular is where we had our first meeting. The space is amazing. It's huge. It's beautiful. There's support. There's programming, stability, job training, the Model UN. Really trying to capture youth. The reason it's 12 is because that's the age the Y allows them to come in without a parent or guardian. But we're working on that. I mean, this is just a first ever partnership. But the fact that these youth could have a home, and we learned after school, there are a lot of young people there, which is it's not just about going to the gym, it's learning how to work out, have trainers, but it's a community center and really focusing on that. They've also agreed to provide visitation centers. There are ways to partner with them in all the Ys. It's amazing. And we've been having one-off partnerships with the Ys throughout, as long as I've known, but this is a full concerted effort. And within that, we've embedded a pilot program, both at the Weingart Center in South LA and the Antelope Valley Y, where not only the youth can become members, but their RFA, their resource families can join. And there's childcare, there's parenting, programming. If the resource parent needs just an hour to work out or a quiet place or parenting support group, there's childcare. And so this is really a spectacular. I'm just thrilled by it. Initiative, they call it initiative, but they have a separate task force, part of the board. We're on the task force. I am amazing. A lot of supports and positive programming and hopefully a lifetime commitment of health and wellness and supports. We can get them in the door and YMCA family, and they can go to any Y they want. It's a lifetime membership. I wanted to end on a happy note. And they call it You Belong, which Hey, questions? Yes.
Oh, I love this. I was a kid who went to the Y in St. Louis. And built into the fabric of my childhood for what I gained. I learned how to swim as very early as a child. And that gave me an advantage because not a lot of Black youth learn to swim early. But all this is great, and I love what you're reporting. I want to ask you for has the county learned, because since I've been doing this work, I find that systems are more concerned with liability than accountability. So has the county learned from the settlement with McLaren to McLaren Hall and probation that they will carry forward so that we don't see this issue crop up somewhere else?
I can speak to DCFS and I can a little bit about probation. Again, I don't want to, disparage another county department, but, one of the things that we didn't discuss a lot back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s was child abuse, right? We did if it involved parents, but not if it involved staff, because nobody thought about that. And it's mandated reporting was an issue, but it didn't seem to apply to staff. There were a lot of people also that had access to children, not social workers. A lot of the McLaren abuse that we've learned came from staff who had access, no camera, no reporting, medical staff, the gardeners, the night staff that were just there. It's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. So I would say access without accountability, that doesn't happen. It did. Part of the problems that we saw in probation was that there were a lot of places, that's a completely different system where it's about power and control, right? And there was access to youth, a lot of power and control issues, and places where there were no cameras and where there was no accountability. And it comes top down, right? Management has to be responsible and they have to weed out, and you have to put people, I'm sorry, you're not working, and until we can work this out and go through IA, you cannot have contact with youth. To this day, we do that. Even if there's an allegation, we are not taking risks with children. The other difference is, as I said, there are more eyes and ears and supports for youth. You've got CASA, you've got lawyers, you've got social workers for the lawyers and our own social work staff. Very, very good. I can tell, I have never worked with more dedicated, mission-driven people in my life. And I've worked a long time. I am pleasantly surprised, but across the board, is that true of every single, person in every single department? Of course not. We have to be really conscious of our management. Our managers have to make sure they know what's happening, and people have to have a way to report. So we have an ombudsman, we have the hotline, we have ways for people to reach out. And the goal really, as a child's attorney, that's a tight relationship, or it should be. One more person. You've got mental health clinicians going in and meeting with youth much more than they did back in the day. Social workers going out and developing a relationship. So, big up, down, responsibility, and more eyes and ears. And a commitment that's just wrong, right? It's
Commissioner Boyd and then Commissioner Vice Chair Chenoweth.
Hey, nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too.
Not a lot of faces around here that I haven't seen before.
I know,
so
but I know your name.
Very nice. It's very nice to have you. I appreciate your report. I like the way you made a little sandwich of it. That was nice. All parts of it are relevant. Though, right? And so from the good news, even if we would have just shit with the YMCA to let our kids swim for free,
Oh,
that
absolutely.
would have been huge. But to have the whole thing, I'm looking forward to hearing about the impact of that. So thank you for giving us that piece of it. It's public knowledge. We brought it up to the commissioner. Some of you all even supported my family through the GoFundMe process of burying my brother. And to put you in November, my brother was shot and killed by the police. It was on the stairs though, is what we're talking about. And that's the conversation that nobody has been able to have because we're too busy fighting the police and everything that they did wrong, right? Because there was no reason to kill him that day. He was only a danger to himself. Unfortunately, they decided to take his life and take that choice away from him. But the reality is, a couple weeks after his passing, I was talking to a close friend of ours, She mentions those, I don't know if you guys know, on social media, they were posting that, were you ever in McLaren Hall? Have you ever been an outreach? Haunted my brother.
Oh, no.
He wouldn't even go on social media because he felt like the algorithm was triggering him. McLaren Hall, 5 Acres, Sycamore, name them. My brothers were there. Pasadena, Altadena.
Sorry.
My brother described one of those places, and we won't associate anyone because, right, you know, a lot of, as the place where men take baths with little boys. Brother was 38 years old. What happened to him when he was 8 and 10 years old affected him. I remember my sister getting rides, see my brothers, who was older than us, she was a teenager, and telling stories of being sexually assaulted by the social worker who tried to rub on her. Hour and a half ride, right? You need my help, right? Accountability versus responsibility, piece of it. That net only caught 2,000 people of thousands that were affected that still need your help.
Absolutely.
So I want to make a suggestion that we widen that net. That DCFS opens their arm to the harm that they've caused, and they actually do their own campaign of accountability. And if you were affected, we would like to provide you with mental health support. We would like to apologize to you because ultimately it was our responsibility. I don't know what the campaign needs to look like, but if you listen to my next suggestion, got some people that can help you. Everything you're doing include lived experience.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Every single thing that you're doing. So while you guys are talking about how the connections, when you get to the CEO's office, take a couple with you, there will be people like myself in the room that will have those light bulbs that can associate it to the significant impact, not just of their childhood. My brother was just killed in November.
A trauma lost.
And it was never resolved,
No.
acknowledged, dealt with. And it haunted the man through adulthood, through parenting, through all the different things. So now you all have a unique opportunity to get ahead of we're not just going to be responsible for those who we're reliable for. We're open to now have the uncomfortable conversations. We're not open to acknowledge that. And that's going to be a huge piece of this because you can't undo what was done with my brother. You can't even undo the harm that was done when my brother came back from those places and ran rampant through our family. Let's be honest for a second. I don't want, for me, an acknowledgement or personal responsibility, but I can see the clear. But I could imagine, as great as it felt to hear you say the work that you're doing, for somebody to say, I am sorry that that happened to you. It should have never happened to you. The ripple effects of tearing through these families should have never happened. And it's a start. I think that'll be huge. So rolling with it, getting in front of it, finding the other 40,000 people that were affected. Let's be honest for a second. You found 2, right? Of probably 40, 50,000. Not all of it happened at McLaren Hall.
No.
Some of it happened all the different ways. So opening that door, being proactive for that, including lived experience and everything, and do what you just did. And that was phenomenal. Talk more about the good stuff. Bring good stuff with you everywhere you go, every presentation that you do, because your work is heavy. We get tired. It's exhaustion. But when you bring what you brought and present the way you presented, that allows us to have that breath of fresh air. That sandwich that you created was masterful. And the other suggestion that I want, pass that across the board. Like, we like Brandon, he's cool. He make us sandwiches all the time, right?
I know, right?
But like DCFS as a practice does not do that. It's doom and gloom. It's big scary bear. It's everybody's out to get us. They're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And anybody who has people function in that environment is for the purpose of manipulation and manipulation only. Easier to manipulate people when they're scared. So thank you for that. Those 3 pieces I take with me. And just everybody let me have that personal moment this is why this work is significant. This is why the impact of what we're talking about of stuff that happened 20 years ago is still running rampant through our families and still affecting our community. So I appreciate you all for letting me have this little bit of a moment. And I hope that goes with you.
I will, and I appreciate you sharing that. I had heard about your loss. I did not understand the depth of his experience and the trauma that he must have been living with. It just it hurts my heart. I agree with you about the apology. I think, $4 billion got a lot of press, but that doesn't really explain the trauma and the hurt and how many families are discussing here. Child welfare, probation, health, Parks and Rec. I mean, it's not just.
Just how many other people saw that and thought, oh,
I
they
can't do
know.
it, right.
The mental health
Yes.
trigger, that the fact that they were looking for people did to so many people. Brother went to the stairs of a church, and that's where he was killed. He was seeking refuge. How many other people are at their figurative church in their lives? As that now that can of worms is open, and what they tried to forget for 20 years has been all over social media, all over the news. And they shoulda, woulda, coulda, probably wish they would have got in on the 4 billion. Let's be honest for a second. That's the other aspect of it, right?
Well, it's not,
If I
the doors
missed
aren't
it-
shut.
If I miss that, at least
Yeah.
the apology, at least the piece. So I'm gonna digress, but I appreciate this dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle.
Thank you. And you said a lot of what I was going to say. There absolutely has to be healing and reconciliation. And it wasn't just McLaren Hall. Like y'all know my story. I was at Booth Memorial. That was shut down right after, and I was trafficked there. The idea of a hotline is so important because there's no one for me to call. And even the staff that tried to help me, she helped me by quitting her job, helping me AWOL, and me living with her until I could, I ended up being homeless. There was not even anywhere for staff to go that wanted to support their children. So having a hotline for young people to call, family to call, expect not just staff, but resource families, foster parents, it's rampant and it's still happening today. I don't want to act like it's not, and I'm one of those folks who, did not participate in the lawsuit because I didn't want to relive it. I didn't want to have to be interrogated and justify my experience. And I know there's a lot of us out there who just made peace with it in different ways, but having some level of healing and reconciliation and acknowledging and affirming and validating that experience would be very meaningful to so many people who still want to remain silent and want to move on with their lives and not anyone know that they had that experience. Having a hotline is something I support. Anything I could do to help. We do a lot around risk stratification and predictive analytics. We need to, and I've said this 6 years ago in a meeting here, we need to turn that around on you all, on the system. What are the risk factors we need to look at when we're bringing on, staff and resource parents? And how do we look at that after they're already onboarded? Because everyone passes initially, but we don't see the harm that happens after once that initial review is gone. You mentioned, you did highlight a lot of great efforts and initiatives and things we're doing in the county. But how are we measuring the impact? How do we know if they're successful? So I would love to hear, what are the results of some of these initiatives and what are the opportunities, the county overplanned to the point where we feel like we can't pivot halfway through. So I want to encourage you all to say this plan is great and we can continue it and evolve it, or it's not what we expected and let's pivot to make it what it needs to be. We tend to stick with it to prove that all the effort and time and resources we've invested in it is working, and it's at the detriment of the families that we're supporting. So I would just would encourage you to, pivot if needed, measure it, make sure it's impactful, because our kids need, our families need a system, need a community that works for them.
Well, LA
Thank you.
County's so good at, and we just keep going because we started it.
Right.
I can speak 2.5 years here. We are not about, because we created something, let's just keep going. I mean, the Y is a perfect example. If some of these programs that we're all investing in are not working, we're going to change it. It's got to be relevant. And it's so interesting. We were at the TAY table last week and some amazing youth with experience. And it was a good reminder. Well, we don't, the department and Ronique is involved in it. We don't do anything without youth and people with lived experiences voices, because it's not just for them, it's for them, right?
Exactly.
That's got to go across the board, not just TAY youth, but across the board. And, pilots are, I think they're arcane and I think they're silly sometimes. If it's really truly a way to try something new and innovative and it doesn't work, move on, do something else. But back in the days, the county was just like, it was just a way to start something new. Say we did it and nobody ever checked back. So I completely agree.
We'll have one more question and comment from Commissioner Eddy.
Thank you so much for this. It's so needed. And resources needs to be working because it's not happening. Just have a case weeks ago, 17-year-old girl. She's an immigrant. She just arrived in February. She was at mom's boyfriend house. and abuse her, escape at night, help. He called social services, social worker responded, and she said, it's better if you go back there because at least you have a house and food. Because if you go to a shelter, you're just gonna be worse. You can be raped again, and your things are gonna be stolen.
That doesn't give me warm fuzzy feelings at all.
So, and
Uh-huh.
I have been trying to help. I have been looking for resources. And she herself tried to look for mental health. And the person says like, so you have kids? You have pets? No. Okay, so it's not that bad. You just need to take care of yourself.
Oh,
So zone it into also the right people because they're so important. That moment she's looking for the help, basically they're shutting her. So, thank you.
I mean, at some point, if you'd like, send me the information because it's not just, if it's not a hotline type call, but there's so many other county resources, 211 if you need housing. I mean, the homelessness issue, there are things that can be done. So that worries me a little.
She made like a bunch of phone calls for 2 days. And because she's an immigrant also.
Right, well, that's
There's a lot of fear on top of that.
Oh, and it's getting worse. We're really encountering some problems. We just doubled our contract with Bethesda for our legal representation, but it's starting to get not good. And now it seems like we're targeting, even though they have immigration attorneys are in line for, it's pretty scary. I appreciate what you said when we started. It is.
Last question from Commissioner Gale. Given the lawsuit and the access to youth at the YMCA through this new program, what are we doing to protect youth in these new open spaces?
I can say, again, hopefully 12 to 26. The Y has an obligation. There are a lot of staff. There are no spaces, I think, where youth would be abused. But again, we've got to encourage youth that if they don't feel comfortable or they don't feel something is right, they have to have someone to speak to. So I can guarantee you the staff that I've met from the Y are very youth focused. But I think maybe that conversation needs to be had that in the beginning, when somebody is onboarded or a new employee, a new youth comes in, meets with staff, somebody's got to encourage them. If you don't feel right or you need somebody to talk to, I mean, the goal is to create mentoring and mentorships where people feel safe, but they've got to have an outlet. And again, you're right, we have to focus on making sure youth know that they can stand up and say no or have a place to go to speak. And I think that's in the past has been a part of the problem. It's having someone trusted. That's a really good point. So I appreciate that question because I'm going to the meeting on Thursday and I'm going to raise that because that's going to be really important. Get that.
Thank you, Ms. Mandela. It's nice to have you.
Pleasure.
Welcome back
Thank you.
anytime.
Hi, we'll be back. Thanks.
I want to acknowledge that Commissioner Romero joined us for the record.
Yep.
And now we actually will move to public comment for item number 5. And we do have one public comment. Ms.
Hello, my name is Chris. I'm with the American Child Safety Coalition. I'm also a person with lived experience in child welfare and peer support specialist. Most of my concern was how DSS's report didn't seem to be taking accountability for removing even one child and placing them in harm's way of being sexually assaulted as a child, as young as 7. I would love to see also DCSS that report that we're not just say we are doing our best to keep children and families together, but talk about how, what kind of resources, how much is spent, what type of resources, pre-petition resources, housing, employment. I know firsthand, a lot of parents are having their child removed and placed in kinship care as an easy out instead of to help those strengthen the families so the child can stay in their homes. So, and then also I wanted to uplift the idea of advocating for every child removed from their parents who are the strongest, fiercest advocates for parents. And if you're going to remove a parent from a child, please place an independent advocate in there, connect to them. An ombudsman is connected to the state, and there are corruptions everywhere. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll now move to item number 6.
We do have two.
Oh, you have another.
online.
Okay.
Ms. Tuttle, please follow the prompt to unmute.
Mentioned that the ombudsman is an option to file a complaint. This option is still not available to families that cross over from family court to DCSF. The ombudsman is only available for children that are in a foster home, and not all cases that are open with DCSF that have children involved. So this discriminatory practice of not serving all families still goes on. It's something that needs to be looked into. And also I wanted to mention that I had visited McLaren Hall a couple of years ago, attempting to attend a meeting with ICANN, which is the Interagency Council of Child Abuse and Neglect. At the time, I didn't know it was McLaren Hall because I never heard of McLaren Hall because I'm not originally from here, but the building felt spooky. I was confused about the wording on the building. One area said DCSF, another area still had McLaren Hall. I asked the lady at the front desk, what was the building like? What did it used to be? Were there children there? She couldn't answer my question. So when I returned home, I looked it up because I couldn't get over how eerie it felt. And then I was shocked to learn what it used to be and the abuse that had occurred there. And I was just very shocked that it was still standing and being used as a DCSF facility. It seems like it should have been torn down with what had occurred there. And, I just wanted to share that. That's
Henry Marini, please unmute.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Thank you. We will now move to item number 6, which is a report that DCFS Director Brandon Nichols actually suggested and thought we good for us to hear more about the flexible funding program that's helping children and families. We have DCFS Deputy Director Kim Renner with us today to talk about the program.
Hello and good morning. I hope everybody's doing well today. Just want to make sure you can all hear me.
And thank you.
Great. Well, it's so great to be a part of today's meeting and to be able to share with you a brief overview and then take any questions about this, what we are calling flexible family supports. And of course, we had to give it an acronym, FFS, in pure DCFS fashion. So as I go through our a few slides here to provide you a bit of an update, I'll refer to it as FFS. And so the state of California through CDSS provided one-time funding. The one-time funding was given out over a course of 2 iterations of funding. A portion of that was in 2023 and then another in 2024. So as you can see on the slide here, 17 million was provided, and then a second round of 16 million was provided to the department for one-time funds, with the primary goal is to stabilize placements in home-based settings. So for youth in out-of-home care, to strengthen familial connections through a variety of eligible activities, such as respite care or enrichment activities. This one was been wildly popular with a lot of our resource families and a lot of our youth, to support and maintain connections, assist with housing, and other goals that really have been identified either by counties like LA County staff or the youth themselves, or even some of our providers have offered various ways in which we can really serve young people to provide them with as much opportunities to really stabilize those placements. If I could just take a moment and share that this was really an opportunity to be able to pay for services and supports that we haven't been able to pay for in the past. This was presented by CYC as an option to the state legislature to fund an area in which there was a real strong belief that these particular supports really will help youth maintain stable placements and really help them to address trauma and other ways in which youth could feel the support of quote unquote what every other kid might be receiving that maybe hasn't been available to them. And we've seen some really incredible feedback and results as a result of these programs. Next slide. So a little bit of an overview of what we've done thus far. So by May 2025, so our prediction is that we'll have spent 18 million of the total funds in this program, specifically surrounding 3 main areas. One is our Enriched Stipend Program. I'll share a little bit more of that with you in a moment. So that's about $11 million. $5 million was the expansion of existing programs. So we're able to serve a wider range and more youth. And then the final area was 2 million, which is about new programs and other innovations that we didn't have in place. Next slide. So to give you a bit more of an update, this we would consider a new program. It is $11 million that has been spent or will be spent, and then another specific amount that will be spent into next year. And we're calling this the Enriched Stipend Program. So we have 2,000 non-minor dependents are being provided, probably since last October, a monthly stipend amount so they are able to spend on their own for very specific activities. They are also given a coach and a mentor through SBCC that's actually supporting them in spending their $500 a month that they're receiving to be able to really enhance all of their abilities to find ways that provide them stable living, ability to kind of do some independent thinking, financial planning, employment assistance, and just their overall well-being. Next slide. The $5 million that I had mentioned was the expansion of existing programs, which is our relative support contracts, camperships, one-on-one supports for youth that really need additional eyes on and supports in the home, extracurricular activities, which is, like I said, wildly popular, which is really wonderful. And then some other programming for both mentorship and transportation supports. Next slide. So the new programs that were developed was a family respite camp. We're able to offer another session this year, and we offered a previous session, which is pretty exciting and innovative. We also have youth empowerment conferences, participation in multiple events that we have that are culturally relevant, and an increase in our respite care programming. So what's next? We'll go to the last slide here, which is our funds allocated to the remainder of the program. This funds expire next year, 2026, June 30th. We are expected to spend all of our allocation in all of the programmings that we've mentioned. There's a list here of some other programming to share a bit more about what our plans are, as we really have a focus on the enriched stipends that we believe will be providing for a really good finalization of the non-minor dependents that are exiting care. We really focused heavily on those that are 20, but we have included 18 to 20-year-olds in that programming. Additionally, we have added slots to a job development with the DEO department that is really going to support a lot of those youth exiting care and being placed in jobs and having job mentorship opportunities, something we haven't done in the past. So we're able to advance that area. So we're very excited about that. Lastly is I just wanted to share that there is a new rate structure that's coming out through CVSS in 2027. And even though these one-time dollars do end and go away, our hope is that the portion of the new rate structure, which is called strengths building dollars, will fill the gap to be able to see that this support will continue in perpetuity. It may not check every single box of what we've decided to fund, but it hits the nail on the head. The majority of what we're choosing to fund will be able to be accomplished through the new rate structure. Unfortunately, there will be a year gap because we are not allowed to spend or draw down any of these dollars for the 2026 year until the new rates are in place. So we are advocating at the state level to see if there's any opportunity for us to have 1 year gap funding so that families won't see many of these programs drop off. But at this point, we do not have any funding secured for that time period. So that is a little bit of the overview of this flexible family supports dollars being spent and programming. I'd love to open it up to any questions or comments.
Hey, Kim, and thank you. This is Dr. Charity. Good to see you. I just want to, in reference to the stipends, I want to make sure my math is mathing. Of the 11 million, my understanding is only 2 million went to the children and the other 9 was for consultants and coaches?
No, I
Accurate?
don't think that's accurate. I'm not sure
Okay.
where you got those dollars from, but that's
Well, 2,000 dependents, 500 a month, over 2 years, it's about $1 million a year. 9 million went
it's
to.
2,000 non-minor dependents.
Yeah. Let me see, I gotta make sure my math is mathing. 2,000 times 500. Oh, you know what? I didn't add the 12, okay. All right, girls, I was about to come for y'all. It's about to come. Add the times 12. So I'm like, wow, that's a lot for consultants. Let me see. So times 12, yeah. Okay, that's better. That's better. Okay, so
Okay.
for the last page where the allocation through May 2026, I was wondering, based off of, for one, were we able to the youth to see how they, what types of support they would want through the funds? Because I know we have a list of what we think would be good ideas for them, but I just remember being 18, aging out of the system, and my list would have looked totally different of what I could have used to support my trajectory. And I remember having to kind of work within the parameters of what like IOP it was allowable or what worked for me, to the point where I actually exited all the programs because they ended up being a barrier to my success and didn't allow for me to be self-sufficient. I know I'm old now and a lot has changed and a lot of this is great, but I'm just wondering if we've have reached out and surveyed the youth to say, hey, based on your experiences exiting, what are some things that we could invest in that could support you? Because it may not be going to camp or pending level up, which I do speaks that may be a different one, but through DCFS, it may be something different. So have we surveyed the young people?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. And yes, actually the program design from the beginning was really brought to us by CYC, which was the youth voice of what they wanted to see supported. And our level up programming, we think, reflects that. There's not a list here that shows all of the level up kind of requests, but that's where we get into what the kids individually want or what the caregivers bring forward for the youth, which is a lot of their extracurricular activities, being able to get to those activities, paying for equipment for those activities. Additionally, the stipend programs for the non-minor dependents are their ability to spend the dollars on what they want by giving them the $500 per month and having a mentor that helps to support their efforts. We really felt reflected their autonomy to kind of spend dollars on going to lunch with friends, or if they wanted to buy tickets to Disneyland. All of these are actually covered because we have wide flexibility in what we felt were supporting their mental health and their ability to go get their nails done or get their hair done. So these were all taken into consideration so that we can give maximum flexibility for that kind of youth voice to make those decisions. And one of the cool things I wanted to point out that SBCC did was they hired 20 mentors. And at first it was 100%, and then it dropped to a large percent. But they hired former foster youth to come and be the mentors for these young people and helping them, budget and kind of make their decisions about, how they wanted to spend those dollars and really support kind of their well-being. So, we really try to get the youth voice throughout the whole process.
Great, thank you, Kim.
Commissioner Eddy, I think you have a response to.
Yes, well, I'm in the same page. Actually, I work at SBCC. I've seen this, and if you want, we can invite and do a presentation with coaches, maybe one of the kids that are in the program.
Great.
We also have a video that shows all this program.
Great.
Hi, Kim. I apologize. Talking is challenging for me. I just had a jaw surgery. But I want to talk about the 2000 Tay. I've heard that some of these NMDs aren't accessing the $500 because I know NMDs can sometimes be hard to track. I'm curious what happens to those funds. Percentage of young people aren't accessing those dollars. And is there a way to encourage those young people getting those funds, making connections, finding those resources? Because I think it's something that is being lost, particularly because I asked this question of Brandon when he came last, because he talked about the challenge of Tay moving forward. So I was curious about what evidence we might get from this experience that could suggest providing some flexible funding long-term, a solution that is meaningful for Tay that can advance and support them in their transition out of care. So I'm just, it's lots of questions wrapped up there. That's why this was something that I elevated and want to have clarity.
Yeah, I hear you, and I would absolutely support the thought that there are some youth that there's some challenge in engaging. You would think that if we're handing out free money to the young people, that they would all raise their hand, 100% show up and say, "Yep, I want my money and I want to spend it." But as we know, like, that's not the case 100% of the time. So there is a small portion, I would say small, to the tune of the 2,000, probably 50, that we just couldn't get to the table to participate. So while 50 is small relative to the 2,000, it is still 50 youth that decided they didn't want, or maybe they didn't decide and just neglected to kind of respond to the engagement outreach efforts. But we're not giving up. We have still a number of opportunities and folks looking to make that engagement still a possibility, whether it's SBCC, their child social worker. We've got programming staff, our AB12 team that is still trying to determine if there are opportunities for those young people to still be a part of it. But at the end of the day, we've got to be responsible and make decisions on what are we going to do with the allocated funds to those young people, and see if there's an opportunity to redeploy those dollars to potentially a new cohort of youth that that came into the space, or if there are ways that we can, allocate those dollars elsewhere. So our plan was to evaluate that midsummer and then to make a determination for the final year on how those dollars will have to then get reallocated since they are not being spent.
Hi, this is Commissioner James. I wanted to ask, and it kind of falls in line with the first presentation from Ms. Mandel, relation to pilots and new initiatives in the county, especially when these shiny things are created without input from the community of people, necessarily having, real tangible sit down at the table, discuss what works and what doesn't work. And so I wanted to ask if there's a possibility for a QOL, a quality of life survey, for about a year, determine working, what's not working. I know the DVC and the Office of Violence Prevention have done something similar with relation to supports for survivors. And, great thing that is being done within that particular arena is that we are really striving to integrate, I should say, survivor's voice. And Ms. Mandel mentioned that, a lot of times in these agencies, we see power and control bubble up with relation to systems, because systems are human made. I always think back to Mitt Romney said, corporations are people too. And for me, the takeaway, for years I couldn't understand that, but the takeaway is that our systems often replicate human patterns and they become coercive. And the people who operate within these agencies can, have this dictum that, oh, if as we're grinding you through the community of people that we're serving, as we're grinding you through, if you don't meet our expectations for how you gauge, then we're going to spit you out. And so I think it's imperative that as we move forward in the county, we're focusing on these new initiatives, that we make it about serving the community, because I don't really believe that our systems were designed initially with service of the people. I think that we should focus and pivot to how do we draw the community in? How do we community partners? And I think a quality of life survey can help build work you're doing. I think it could really, fine tune it so that you're not just going through it and then when people drop out of it, you're like, oh, well, it's not working. Oh, let's find out why it's not working by actually taking it to the people.
Any other questions or comments for Deputy Director Renner? Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Reese. I think it's very important just to hear youth and entrepreneurship. So any mention or allocation of funding for this particular pool. We often engage a lot of youth. They're looking at Instagram. They're looking at what, creates millions overnight. So I'd be curious to see how we implement some of these ideas as well. But in the sense of like, here are the tools, go ahead. If you got to buy something that could help you create some of this content, because the reality is that they're seeing it, they're eating it. So I didn't hear any of that. And then the other thing would be nutrition access. Some of these folks, have they thought about it? And I think it's our duty to keep them healthy as well. In connection to food access that could help them continue with their goals as well.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Commissioner Flowers. They do the homeless count. Do you ever just see the kids that's in need and try to bring them into a foster youth when you see them out there trying to reach those youth? You try to bring them into the facilities? Help them out?
Question they ask, are you a foster youth? Sorry.
What I'm saying, she was saying, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because that's something I've talked about. That's not even a question that is asked when counting unhoused people. Are you current or former
Yes.
foster youth? So we speculate on that data, and Kim, I know this is for you, this is your question, but that's a great question I think should be asked to help us really collect really strong data on how many houseless folks are current or former foster youth.
Commissioner.
All right, back to you, Kim. Was answering.
Yeah, I probably would need to defer to parts of our department that understand how that's working. We've got a supportive housing section, which is under Deputy Director Angela Parks Piles. That particular section, I believe, has probably more insight as to like how we make those counts and what that looks like. I know our social workers who are front and center, the child placing social workers, will be able to, have the direct information on case specific, but we do evaluate that and track that on a system level. I just don't know that I could specifically say like how we're doing that as a department or where that information goes.
Mark Krosky?
Hi, Kim. Thank you. It's really, really helpful and interesting report. I'm wondering if we are thinking about guaranteed basic income programs, right? And how there's such urgency around evaluation to hear people's voices about what they do with the money and why it actually contributes to their success later in life. And I'm wondering if we're doing something like that. We know how many times we start with the broad program, and then over time it gets narrower and narrower and narrower, and it just feels like some of the data we could collect now could help to lay the groundwork for why youth choice is important. Not your favorite list of activities, but youth choice. And always having some stories about young people and why something that sounds crazy to you actually is a really smart thing for them to be investing in. And I know that's hard. It's a short term, there's a timeline coming up, but it's something that we could learn from.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. We definitely are going to be evaluating all of the spending, the outcomes, which includes interviewing and surveying youth. We do have an evaluation component to this program. Additionally, we have a really cool contractor that is also the same vendor of the guaranteed income pilot. So it really allows us to be able to bring the data together so that we're not just focusing on our population, but really LA County population, so that we can learn from not just their voices, but also the spending habits and the supports that are in place, and really the responses to what that looks like after. So we definitely have that included, plus a communication strategy so that we can synthesize like what the learning was along the way.
That's great. Who's the vendor? The researcher?
Oh, you know what? I'll need to look. That's something that we've still been
That'd be great.
Evaluating. But the vendor for the stipend is Mocafy, is the name of the agency.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Romero.
Good morning, this is Commissioner Romero. I heard the word mentorship mentioned a lot. I wonder if you could just expand on that and what mentorship looks like with some of the funding that you received here, especially around like the training curriculum for the mentors, and if there's any additional supports for the mentees as well. And what does engagement look like in terms of a time frame, access or touch points as well?
So I actually don't have all of the specifics on each one of the programs we're funding through FFS. There's a lot of different parts of our department that are supporting the specific programming piece. We probably have a good 50 or 60 programs. So we probably have to bring them in. What I do know at a high level is the mentoring portion of the stipend program is through our SBCC partners, who I think are right in this room. So there's probably lots of interest there in terms of how South Bay Center for Counseling is showing up for our non-minor dependents in that support arena. We also have a mentorship program that is funded through FFS, which is called the Near Peer Mentoring Program. I'm not the expert as well. We could bring somebody back in to talk about that, but that is a brand new concept, which is surrounding around near peers, providing mentorship to our youth and our non-minor dependents that have been surrounding both our shelter programmings or any emergency placement programs that is new to our department. And by new, I mean within a year or so, has been around a long period of time, but is definitely showing lots of promise. So in order to get into those details, we'd have to bring back some folks if that's something of interest to talk a bit more about, which is surrounding mentorship. There are also parts of our department that have other mentorship programs, specifically in our supportive housing, our AB12, and all things TAY. So as it relates to all of those, it might be of interest to bring back a topic to talk about how we're both mentoring our youth and our non-minor dependents to look into that a bit more in the weeds.
If there's any follow-up, I would like to inquire about, do you have participation rates for these individual programs?
Oh, I believe they absolutely track participation rates, yes.
Okay, like some numbers would be great, or would have been great to see in the slides here.
Thank you, Commissioner Romero. Commissioner Hasildo?
It was about some of the ways that our programs and our systems burden children. Going back to, the why, teaching children to speak up if someone's doing some harm to them. Like that's the goal, to teach them to stand up for themselves versus creating environments where children are safe. And, this calling for assistance and being told to kind of figure it out. And I think the same way about the stipends, right? They're not knowing fully how it's implemented, whether in getting money. If it's a matter of receipts, reports, where my child gets an allowance, he gets an allowance. I'm not asking for an evaluation or documentation right? And so I'm wondering how much of a burden some of these programs become children. I've worked in homeless services for a long time, and some of my colleagues would tell me that show up to an access center, a gift card, bring receipts. And how burdensome that is. And so I'm curious about how we have accountability. If we, it's funding, I get that, but how we create a situation where the burden isn't on the children.
I just want to say that's the power and control dynamics that I was referencing, the coerciveness of, you have to prove yourself to be supported. We already know that they're under a rock, This is part of what we see over and over and over again. And it's not serving our communities, and that's why people fall out.
Thank you for uplifting that, Commissioner.
Absolutely. I was also thinking, you shared, Commissioner James, around the quality of life, because also, obviously with state funding, I'm sure, like you said, there has to be some accountability, but communities not asked about what can that accountability look like. It's very different to say, how has this improved your life, than how to say, look, what did you spend it on, and how often did you spend it, and all those things. So I think that's a really important point that we can't lose as we collect data, how the community needs to be involved in what is actually being asked and how it's being back out.
How important to listen to them, because at the end of the day, they're the ones experiencing that. And the goal is that they're independent. That's why they have a coach, to guide them. And I think that will be interesting to hear from them.
We're teaching them trust.
Correct.
I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot real fast. Kim, first and foremost, nice to see you. Commissioner Romero, the peer mentoring program, to the point that you just made, it's, something that we brought to the commission years ago. It's beautiful. And now it's connected to the county. Now it's getting county money. And now it looks like case managers with lived experience. And now it looks like something entirely different, something that I don't even know if I'll be a part of in 6 months to a year. Let's have a conversation about how the county takes something beautiful, make it into a replica of itself, destroy it in the process. And this is huge. And it's problematic, and it creates a need, and then we can't sustain that need. In this particular case, Commissioner Romero, to your point, it's dual-sided. Because we're taking, in this particular case, your peer mentors who have already been damaged by the system and putting them in a position to make them double vulnerable. And the part, surprisingly, that we were all worried about, because remember when we did the presentation, and to your point, Commissioner Vega, I remember your statement about, well, let's see how that's gonna work as far as the re-traumatization. Kids ain't re-traumatizing us, it's DCFS. The kids aren't re-traumatizing us, it's the administrative aspect of it. And I've been living this for 3 years. So I'd love to have that conversation, even if I shoot myself in the foot in the process of doing it, because there's so much richness within where we went wrong, how we had something phenomenal, and now we have something good. Is it good? Do we still have the numbers? Is it still making an impact? Yes. But now our hands are so tied and we're so, we can't because of this and we won't because of that and all those things that the money is not worth it. I'd rather go back part-time and have the few youth that I had and the significant impact that I had than be full-time and be doing what I'm doing now. But there's no space to have such a conversation. So even if I just shot myself, I thought it was worth it to bring that into this space where we can open up a whole nother can of worms. Because you just brought up an excellent question and the numbers won't tell us. Because through the shelter alone, there have been 200 to 300 youth that have passed by us, right? We are situated in a place to where the numbers will not tell you the story. But they say, well, how you had 200 youth and you guys only got to touch 40 of them? What happened? And of those 40, you only have a significant impact with it. That's not the story. The story is there are young people that have only met us once whose lives have been affected forever. But then the county sent us on this tangent, this side mission to do everything else where we negated what our original impact was. What the purpose was of us being there in the first place. Not to the fault of the county, nobody did anything wrong, but you all are so big that in order to play with you, you have to conform. Then the people that are playing with you don't want to play no more because they cannot recognize themselves. And myself personally, I would rather go on the outskirts and privatize is that I'm trying to do outside of it and build something right alongside it that not only will, in comparison, blow it out the water, but will have the actual impact that our young people need.
We have it.
That's pretty good. He said it's good.
All right, that was it. I'm
We
complete.
didn't expect you
I
to.
said, I'm complete. I said, oh, I can't wait to feel complete. You all.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, I think we'll close out with Ms. Renner. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for being here. And we'll move on to see, are there any public comment?
No one raised their hand.
Okay. All right. Now into our subcommittee reports. I'm really excited to hear from item 7 from our Standing Racial Justice Committee with our committee co-chairs, Commissioner James and Gail. And over to you.
Okay, so this is my first time doing a report, so I wasn't familiar with what it should look like. It's just, I'm not gonna give you the whole pictures.
Very thorough.
The annual 2025 review of RJC achievements, and I organized it as a year of listening and policy/practice review. And so one thing I will read from the report is the introduction. Over the course of the past year plus, beginning with the March 13th, 2024 Racial Justice Committee meeting, we committed to reviewing issues of family court, Specifically, its interconnection to county agencies such as DCFS, CSSD, or Child Support Services Department, EPSS, Department of Public Social Services, to meetings that were delayed because of not meeting quorum or in deference to colleagues who experienced severe impact from the Eaton fire. We did not hold a meeting on DPSS issues. However, after hearing from lived experience community members, service providers, and agency managers, the RJC decided to sharpen its focus on the issues of child support services. This comprehensive review aims to highlight the key exigencies, challenges, and points of contention that have defined our work over the last 14 months. This report starts with where we landed and proceeds backwards to allow for deeper discussion on the issue of child support. Multiple meetings that identify DCFS issues not previously heard. The commission.
I have no idea what
And have now made their way into CCF meetings via our last meeting. Attorneys Young Lee and Sharon Balmer Cartagena. So this report will provide highlights of those meetings. So on April 4th, 2025, we had a meeting with Child Support Services on Title IV and the courts. And they gave us a Child Support 101. So that's something that they're doing in various arenas. And it was an organized PowerPoint that they provided to us, and they came, Jeannie Cho, who's the executive deputy director, I believe, and also Lee, who is the head attorney for Child Support Services. His name is on any legal documentation that comes out of the court. So it was great to have him because I've seen his name on a number of documents to my own case. So the key takeaways from that meeting was talking about and explaining to the RJC what Title IV is. Those of you who know, Title IV is basically the federal law under the Social Security Act that requires every state to order, enforce, and collect child support. If the custodial parent receives benefits via CalWORKS, the state has a right to seek reimbursement by opening a child support case against the non-custodial parent. CSD also enforces medical support, requiring one or both parents to provide medical insurance when beneficiaries of CalWORKS are into the system. There may also be orders for reimbursement. We talked about the state disbursement unit, which is a completely separate entity from child support, but they basically are like the bank for child support, and they handle issues, the payments. Are child support orders that can be modified due to changes in circumstances, and all Title IV cases are handled out of Stanley Mosque. Parents out of area, like in Lancaster, can connect to LA Court Connect, which is basically like Zoom for the courts. So all four of those things have challenges where they can be weaponized. And we had further discussion about the ways that those things can be weaponized. We had emphasis on, in terms of our discussion on domestic abuse survivors. In some of the other presentations that we've heard from, usually in cases where there's Title IV works, domestic abuse attached to it, like almost 90% of the cases. So talking about who's the custodial parent versus the non-custodial parent, talking about typically the mother as opposed to the father. The custodial parent is the one who receives the support. The non-custodial parent is typically the one who pays it. And so the child support services, in order to not further increase conflict, they've now started responding or calling the custodial parent as the person receiving support, non-custodial as the person giving support. And I can't tell you that that is significant. It's significant because literally you have fights in court over those kinds of little minor conflicts. We talked about the wage garnishment of low-income parents. That was something that Dr. Cole Charity introduced, and how it can be source of a burden in and of itself. They highlighted that 80% of garnishments are secured with income withholding orders, potentially inciting financial fallout because it can go on to someone's credit report. It can keep them from getting work. It could cause them to be let go from a job. So there are all of these other sort of adjacent issues. There was further discussion regarding what can be done to prevent non-payment. So what has recently happened as a matter of legislation is that it was a Senator Cam Lager-Dove, put forward legislation that removes the sort of the accountability factor of that your license can be suspended. So, you know, how that may seem like a benefit to people who need to keep jobs and be able to get to their job, it can be weaponized. And that's part of my focus, is helping bring awareness to this commission how things can be manipulated, and, you know, looking at ways that we can solve that, because now they're also looking at removing the ability to suspend someone's medical license or professional license. I know of a particular case. We had a survivor come in our previous October of 2025, a mother who came from a high income background, and the father's license for medical practice would be suspended, promised to pay, he wouldn't do it, and then wash, rinse, repeat. And it happened successively, like 6 times. And at some point, the court should have stopped it, but they have enabled that kind of behavior. So going to our first meeting about child support services, that was October 7th, 2025. And that was challenges faced by persons of color, particularly women. And on that date, we hosted attorneys from Genesee Center, managing staff attorney Allison Messenger, and staff attorney Lisa Zeckley, along with survivor mother Veronica Claiborne. And there was also a representative from CSSD. They gave us, in terms of Genesee, they gave us a breakdown demographic of their clients. 100% are just domestic abuse survivors, 50 to 55% are Black, percent are Latino, 80% are CalWORKS recipients, and the average number of children are 2.5. So their primary needs are domestic violence restraining orders, divorce, and child support. And most of those child support cases are titled, which is handled by Child Support Services Department through commissioners as opposed to judges. Financial abuse is often designed to minimize child support obligations. Most survivors are not represented because they don't have the resources. And if they're not able to access services, then they're just kind of well. So that's a major issue, because part of the issues that came out with child support services is that the communication is not great by child support attorneys. They often are all day, and they're seeing cases for the first time. If, you know, they're not necessarily going back to their office. There's a small office over in Stanley Mosque to review the next day's cases, because they're from morning to the afternoon. And so that creates a problem for people in the community utilizing these services, because Genesee said that many of the times their clients did not even know that there was a lawyer assigned to their case. They're being brought into the system, given no transparency about what they can expect. Oftentimes, you know, the advantage that I had with engaging with the system is that I was a legal assistant. I worked as a paralegal across many different areas of law. And so I know how to put together a motion. I know how to file my documentation. I know what I can, you know, reasonably expect. But these are systems that are so rooted in just getting through processing, that they're churning people through and spitting them out. And what we're finding is that survivors a lot of times are refusing the system because one, it puts them at odds with the other parent. And the system is really in a coercive way, because if you're a Title IV, if you're a CalWORKS recipient, you're can sign what's called a waiver. But it's a waiver to not proceed forward, but oftentimes they're not given that information. If they are assigned to meet and confer, this was another issue that came out. If they're assigned to meet and confer with their attorney and they're given a date, can't meet that date because maybe they have, obligations. Maybe they're working, maybe they don't have childcare, whatever the case may be. If you don't meet and confer at that time, then you never get to meet with your attorney that's assigned to your case. And you show up in court, the attorneys don't often communicate with you in court. It's just, it's really problematic to be putting someone, it's like having children through an immigration hearing and they don't have representation, right? So these are the things that we're seeing. Judges are not familiar with the commissioners are not familiar with the discovery process. This is one of the things that came out from Genesee. I provided at least 9 bullet points about the problems that Genesee identified. Part of that is the communication or lack of communication, who are community members not understanding the legal process, judges not familiar with the discovery process. The entire system is setting attorneys up to fail due to bifurcated cases between home court and Title IV courts, which home courts and Title IV courts are unique to LA County. I found that out from the Judicial Council, a member of the Judicial Council, where literally you're assigned a court for you're in family law for, ex partes, RFOs, what have you. But with relation, if you're a CalWORKS beneficiary, you go to a commissioner. So there's often not communication between those two courts, and that creates its own set of problems. Like I said, the discovery is lacking and not enforced. There's inconsistency in case management, because when you're into child support services, you receive a case manager. But if you have to do a Title IV case, once you have an attorney assigned to the case, then you can no longer speak to your case manager. So now you have conversation with nobody and they're just churning you through the system. So there were some recommendations that came from not only Genesee, but Commissioner McCroskey, myself. So I included all of those recommendations. I'm not going to go through them here. They're listed within the report. And so the great thing is Jeannie Cho has been magnificent in terms of being receptive and really demonstrating that she cares about this issue that we've elevated. They've already started making changes. Like, for instance, one of the major issues with relation to the attorney assignment is that attorneys are assigned courtrooms, and I believe there's 5 Stanley Mosque. So they're assigned on a daily basis. They're not assigned to cases. So they will appear for a case, have a hearing. They don't know anything about the case. They'll have a hearing. Then the next time you're in court, somebody new, and then you have to possibly argue for yourself that no, this is not what the last attorney said, because they're not necessarily looking at the notes before they're called to the case. And so that creates a gridlock if you have someone who is abusing the process. And so those are things that they've already started changing. And this was even before the meeting, because Commissioner McCroskey actually set up a call between myself, she, and the several people from CSSD, Jeannie Cho, Eric Lee, Ian Rudge, and someone from DCSS, which is the state's Department of Child Support Services. So what we had to say, they started making changes ahead of that meeting. So they've made things more efficient in terms of attorney assignments. And there are other things that they are implementing. So we're scheduled to have our next meeting because we were not able to complete that meeting during the first session last month. So they've agreed to come back next week, which is great. I really would love for anybody who's available to, plug in and hear that meeting in this commission so that you understand the work that we're trying to do. Because one of the things that I was disappointed about was in one of our meetings, I don't think Commissioner Mann fully understood what focus had been with the RJC. And she kept saying, well, why are we focused on family court? And we've not been focused so much on family court as opposed to county agencies that have intersection with it. And that seemingly, there was a disconnect for her and she kept sort of pushing back on it. But really, we've been looking at if we can make things stronger, I believe, make things stronger with these agencies that have contact with the court, we can then have sort of this vicarious transformational effect on the courts. And so, honestly, we have looked at issues with DCFS from a different perspective than just children who are already involved in the system. I want to see prevention. So we had a meeting in December 9th, working with system impacted survivors. We brought in professionals, Maria Griglio, who's directing attorney for Family Support and Advocacy Center, which is a member of the Children's Law Center. She was former county counsel for 17 years. We also had Lisa Zekkely from the Genesee Center, Andrea Castor, who's minors counsel, and she's in private practice. And then we had Amy Goldman, who's an MSW. And there was also a representative from DCFS, I believe. And so the purpose of that meeting was to allow commissioners in that room who may not be familiar with the process of litigating investigation cases, they expose the ways that parents and children are traumatized by the investigation process because most of those investigations are unsubstantiated. And so hear from professionals about some of the challenges that they're encountering. Special attention was drawn to the fact that most reports are unsubstantiated and that 50% of the county's Black children will endure an investigation prior to the age of 18. This meeting was arranged to specifically uplift the front end of challenges to county families prior to having allegations substantiated and having a parenting plan put in place. Griglio gave a shortened presentation. I was actually referred to her because one of the attorneys that I know said she gave such a dynamic presentation about the work that they're doing on behalf of TAY parents. What she's finding, all of her clients, and just to give you a demo, 87 clients in total, all are privately funded. 70 children have been displaced, 43 permanently lost, 37 placed through FFAs, 54% are Black children, and 70 to 80% of her cases have DV. So these are transitioned age youth who are basically experiencing generational trauma, repeating patterns of what they experienced in life. So I have it on my phone.
We want to make sure we have time for the FFA folks too.
Okay, and so I'm hoping with the work that we did in the body of the RJC, I'm hoping to elevate that work here because I think guys, please correct me if I'm wrong, have been specifically focused on children who are already foster youth and not really addressing of thousands of cases that are investigated but never actually become foster youth. And of the inherent issues around that. And so I hope, because we did have the meeting last month with Neighborhood Legal Services and I think Public Counsel representatives. I know their names, but I'm not about their firms. But they came in and they gave a great overview of the work that they're doing within DCFS. Because I think they have a pilot terminating or has terminated this year, something that should be considered going forward. So I really like to have that work uplifted and we can hear more. I would love for Ria Griglio to come and give her full presentation so that this whole body can hear about what's happening with representation of families. And mind you, she only represents 87, but there are other families who need that representation when you consider the number of reports that are made daily. Data report. So it's all in the 8 pages.
Well, please send it.
I sent it to
We'll get it around.
so please distribute it.
Yes, okay, so, Interim Director, we'll post it with the minutes, so we can. Oh, well,
Do we have any comment?
well, I think.
Oh, we do.
I'm gonna add 2 points. So Title 4E of the Social Security Act, as you know, is the child welfare system. Title 4D is the child support system. So from the beginning, we're set up in parallel, not considering the overlap. And I just think they're did a great job, Roman. She's done a great job facilitating all these conversations, but two sort of lights away from all this. One is at the state level, they are engaging in style changes to the state child support systems, so their timing is really good. And the second one is that I doubt if on either department's side, child support or DCFS, they know much about what's happening on the other side. So that's one of the reasons I got into the data question with them. What does your data show about these families and whether they are or have been or et cetera? And not very much, because it's not a question they regularly ask. And I imagine it's the same way on the DCFS side, but it should be a prevention program. Right? And as DCFS expands into prevention, I think there's a potential for a partnership that really support both. So families aren't trying to figure out this system and then going to that system.
Can I just build on what she said really quickly? One of the things that I would like to ask, and I talked about this with, is the possibility of a survey of who are receiving child support, because they have the ability to contact them. They have all of their email and contact phone numbers. If we can find a way to partner BBC, I know because many parents in these systems experience domestic violence, and just seeing your experience, because I think we will learn a lot about why these systems creating such conflict and turmoil, chaos in people's lives, if we could actually survey the people receiving the support.
Yeah, I just wanted to really quickly appreciate you, because I remember years ago complaining like, we're not DCFS oversight, so why do we only focus on DCFS? We are the Commission for Children and Families, and there's a lot that happens before and after children and families hit DCFS. So to hear this and to see you championing something and bringing it into this space, I'm immensely appreciative of it. And then it also gets us out of our bubbles of our silo. Everybody right here got an issue. You can damn near have the brand on your forehead, right? Hey, Tiffany's all about Tay. Like everybody has our thing. But we get this beautiful moments to where we get to be a part of other people's things, right? And then also expand as a new mother, right? And I'm learning through this. So we're expanding, as we used to be just a talking commission, then we became a doing commission, and now we're expanding again. And so much appreciation for that. And said it before, and since some of the stuff I'm saying is starting to catch on, let me throw this one out there again. DCFS should not be the Department of Children and Family Services, but the department serving children and families. So when they change DCFS to DS, whatever the acronym will be, if we got it right, and be a couple more years, but we'll pin the fact that I said that first 3 years ago. This was said years ago, that we need more conversation like this. So it might feel awkward and odd to be the guy leading us into that uncharted territory. Trust me, that was me before. It's beautiful and we appreciate it. So keep it.
Yes, can I say one thing? Like, thanks, Commissioner James, for doing this. I just like want to make one request, is because everything's taken out, but could we get that report on the hard copy also?
So yeah, we will. We'll send it around with the meeting minutes, so everyone will get to see the full report.
Thank you.
I think you are on the RJC now,
Yes.
so, long. Any other, well, Commissioner James, but Commissioner Gale is still here. Any other questions before we move to public comment? We have to do public comment on this one specifically, right? Okay.
There's no public comment.
Okay, well, Commissioner Cooper and Commissioner Moore, I don't want to relegate you all to 14 minutes.
I can do it. It's just gonna be like a fire hose. if
I
do it in
know.
15 minutes.
And that doesn't feel quite fair. Maybe what we could do is we can hold that fuller report till the next, we can find time in our next meeting
I'll
probably.
find time. I'll make
Okay.
it.
But maybe you want to just share some top level highlights for us to think about?
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, essentially, when you look at everything, there has been a shift in numbers from pre-CCR, continuum of care reform being when we reformed our homes to be SDRTPs, we brought in intensive treatment foster homes around 2016. So that's when that change was. The numbers went down. It does look like the county has started certifying more non-relative caregivers. And the numbers do track. Now, I haven't done any statistics. It's just percentages. So, and conversations, we did ascertain that neither the FFA insurance crisis nor the placement matching technology, because that has improved over time, can explain, like, that's not the issue. So the remaining issues are the decline seems here to stay. FFAs probably need to model if they can survive sort of these new numbers, and the county probably needs to decide how many beds / providers it now needs. And that's sort of the short-term solution. Sort of the long-term solution, it sounds like in some of the conversations that the counties the providers have had with the county, that the story is that county needs FFAs to come up with more innovative models of care to serve those who have complex unmet needs. Sort of the standard, where all roads tend to lead when you start to look into this. And, staying open and things like that. The county has certain children, and they're a match with the providers that they have. So what you'll see when we do the longer report is a recommendation that we sunset this ad hoc committee and sort of really create another one that starts to look into youth with complex unmet need that we keep bringing up. And it's been an issue over time. Start to look at that with regard to not only FFAs, but county in general.
STRTPs,
All of it. Because you can't reform one piece of a continuum of care without expecting to reform the entire continuum of care. So they are going down. Parents are going to the county more, relative and non-relative, various and valid reasons. The insurance crisis, not placement matching. It is a mismatch at this point, and we've got to deal with that going forward.
Now footnote, the reason is the FFAs get their income from placement of children. So if the children, or less children going to the agencies, there's less income for the agencies. That's how they are paid by the county, per child, per placement. County's taking the majority now. It used to be the other way around. Now it's flipped. It used to be the lion's share was the FFAs, now it's the county. So for those of you that may not have been in the beginning, that was one of the things we were looking at as to why has this occurred. We still don't have that answer. But we know the FFAs are going to have to brace themselves. And the county is looking at other programs like Kush mentioned, complex care. Still a big question. Will that fill that financial hole? Will it be done fast enough? FFAs that are now, we've had several close. Prices of insurance made it worse. However, it doesn't look good. So that's why we were thinking in as to what is DCFS, and when you brought up prevention, it made me think, how much can DCFS take on? So if it keeps taking on, take on all the foster families, all the relatives, and all the prevention. In the meantime, they have this mechanism out there of foster agencies. Well, I'm not quite sure what's happening at DCFS. It kind of goes back to what was also said, that it's just behemoth and it keeps getting even bigger. So I don't know the answer. I just put it out. That's part of our search.
Complex care committee or something that already exists.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, so maybe it'd be a good idea to maybe tag on to that.
Right. We would leverage sort of whatever is happening, and the presentation sort of shows the outcomes of the conversations that the county had with the FFAs, sort of the work groups that have come out of that, and there definitely is a connection there. It's this, we keep talking about this subset of young people, right? At least we're now calling them youth with complex unmet needs. We used to call them complex care kids. So we probably, I know DCFS has been struggling, counties have been struggling statewide. It might be something that we can support, because all roads keep leading to this subset
I
of
would
children.
actually recommend, I only attended one of those meetings, and one of the things I uplifted, because I just didn't feel it was the best place for me to be, was that we create the complex needs these kids need. And so if we can break that down, and maybe walk that back, like, why are the needs complex and how have we manufactured and created these? Because it's all like, they didn't come in with these.
Complicated to y'all. That's
It's not. So if we look at the needs we've created and create something that's more efficient for them and not to fill their gaps and holes, I think we would do, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
And then develop placements for that, rather than developing the placements and trying to shoehorn children into them.
I was, Tiffany, by the way, I got to see at the Child Welfare Conference in Washington DC. She was terrific.
I still get around despite the fact I got kids.
Yeah, I got to witness, it was terrific. But there is nationally, I was asked to be a part, and I couldn't even begin to tell you all the acronyms, but I will share the National Association of Mental Health and National Association of Public Health and National Association. There's like, they have this group define complex care needs. This is happening on a national level in Washington. So they have sent out, they're surveying all state agencies and individuals, and they hope to come up with a paper. Now, that would be a national paper on complex care. So I will keep you posted, but Dr. Charity, I agree with you wholeheartedly. As I said to them, it doesn't happen when they're at the STRP wanting to live in a hotel and earn it. I mean, those issues happened a long time.
I'm gonna have no feet left by the time we done. If you're gonna shoot myself in the other foot. I need to be a part of this conversation. I have been working front line with these young people. We are entirely missing
Let's
the
do
mark.
it.
You got it correct. Their needs are not complex to me. And I think one of the best examples. It was a young woman who, to Franco's point that he made, was one of our most trying days. And like, I'm getting cussed out, and I'm gonna make it quick, y'all, but this is worth it, right? I say a lot, but I've been trying to make it worth it. We got cussed out. I mean, cussed out to the point where she wanted to fight, right? Lil mama wanted to fight. And she's like, and I'm gonna beat the doop doop, insert all the words, Bad Girls Club, very much in real life. Cookies, because somebody stole her cookies. And in my mind, I thought it was the staff. I ain't gonna hold you. But not that somebody stole it, but like somebody ate her cookies. So I'm watching her blow up on the youth and watching all the things. So we're there, we're in the midst of, we're in the trenches. Now we're at Target because we tried to suggest, hey, maybe I could just buy you some cookies. Like, can we replace it? Turns out it wasn't about the cookies. He was stressed, prom dress situation. We had to call Charity. She was stressed because that morning she got a phone call that her prom dress wasn't coming through. Then the school called saying that they were refusing her admittance to the prom because they had predetermined that she was gonna be a problem. So I'm about to get beat up, not literally, but beat up about 4 o'clock in the afternoon because it's something that had nothing to do with me 9 o'clock in the morning. We persisted. We sat there, we got cussed out. She said, screw you, screw your mama. I hope your mama dead. I said, damn, actually, no, she's sick. But thank you. To the point of triggers, right? To the point of triggers. Look at, it was not you weren't the problem. There was something not complicated about the fact there was something else going on. She almost got the police called on her. They was about to do all the different things. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, don't seem to be about no cookies. 2 hours later, we're on the phone with Charity. Hey, we need an emergency dress. We need this, we need that. The same people she was just about to beat the crap out of. She said, somebody go get my shoes. I'm about to beat both of them. Calling my auntie, we about to, and we're sitting there and not taking it personal. The staff is scared. In their defense, little mama got hands. She was from Watts. We was like, look, if she take off, like, I don't know what's about to happen, but we were prepared. We were texting our lead. We were in conversation. We were prepared for a time such as this, right? We're riffing off of each other. We're making jokes. We're de-escalating the situation. All the best skills. DCFS staff is in the corners. Please stop escalating her. Please stop talking to her. You're making it worse. And I'm like, are you serious right now? Long story short, we solved the problem. Wasn't nothing complicated about it. There was a young person who had a need that cookie was a symptom of what was really going on, right? Now, the point that I was making in this day, I can give you 20 examples of young people that we were introduced to. Oh, they don't talk. They're gonna meow at you like a cat. They're gonna growl at you. This is the complex need. You can't get through to them. If you ask them too many questions, they're gonna do this. I'm sitting there playing 21 questions with a kid, and the first question was, I heard you like cats. You wanna see pictures of my cats? I heard you like cats. This is a young person that when they get triggered, they start growling and meowing at people because that's the thing that gets you to leave me the hell alone. Then you will get up my face, right? So I'd love to I got a million examples, million solutions. Nobody's having this conversation. And even in the event that I shoot myself in the foot, because part of what I have is privileged frontline information, it's worth it to our young people that we finally get this right. Because in 20 years, might be the reason why they end up on the stairs. And I'm always gonna take that back to that. I just sold that into me. We are looking at what we're doing right now. I'm looking at where they're gonna be in 20 years. And how we're impacting them and whether or not we're taking responsibility for that. So put me in, coach. I'll lose it all just to get it right.
This could be fun.
What you describe? Being in preschool every day.
Baby's gotta go to school.
I want to bring it down that we have 3-year-olds fight you. So their little bodies is so full of fear and rage and, just hopelessness. And so I think that you and I have been having a lot of conversations about if the alarm is going off at 15, we missed the boat at 5, right?
Yep.
If the alarm is going off at 12, there was something happening at 2.
And we get a second first 5. That 18 to 21, somebody put this down that I said this because it's gonna be borrowed on. First 5 is 18 to 24. We do get a second first 5. And we blow the crap out of that opportunity. Now we're trying to push it back to 26 to waste more time on them. That's a whole nother subject. Right. That's to your point. That's that you're right. And we need to hear more about that. We don't hear about under 7. Like we don't hear about those. So it's like first 5 and then from 6 to 17, we don't hear nothing about in this commission.
We have a presentation on adolescent brain development, so we could bring that back around.
I think that'd be dope. Great points, Pam Reyes. Are we excited again as
Yes, we are.
Yes. It's happening, right?
Yes. You're helping make it happen. Any other questions? Folks? Okay. We do have public comment. Okay, we will move to public comment on item number 8. Number 8.
Ms. Settle, please follow the prompt to unmute.
Hi, I'm Latia Suttle with the Reimagine Child Safety Coalition. Being that LA County has over 75,000 homeless people, children aging out of the foster care system into homeless shelters and into transitional housing for homeless youth, there's also over 90% of the juvenile halls are filled with Black and brown youth. This commission should be open to the recommendations presented from those with lived experience and from the Reimagine Child Safety Coalition, which has already been provided to the Commission for Children and Families. That's all I have.
Kenny Rios, mother, and daughter to Arnold Rios, and I'm just going to speak from the heart here, but also say that there are parents with complex needs as well, and many of us get pushed aside. I've applied for every legal aid, and every time we don't have enough resources for your complicated case. Moving forward, I wanted to share about something that, I told my dad to reach out to about the settlement, right? My dad was picked up for not to school, 60s. He didn't have shoes that week because his shoes got stolen and his mom didn't have money to buy shoes just yet. He got taken to juvenile hall. At juvenile hall, he got physically assaulted. He got placed in solitary confinement. One time he was placed in solitary confinement for a week. He wasn't fed. They found him. They were like, oh no. And they just gave him one meal, left him there for another week. He was human trafficked. How? Forced into fire camp. I learned about these stories as I navigated the child welfare system, as my child was placed in solitary confinement by our abuser, and recognizing that there's no real oversight. All because he didn't have shoes. So I would plead with, now that we have this $4 billion historical $1 billion settlement, why not create a truth and reconciliation committee to address this? There are many people who weren't sexually assaulted, but there are many people who were sexually assaulted in the care of the county and the state and still haven't been brave enough to tell their stories because you didn't ask them the way they felt comfortable. And maybe it's not their time. So we should ask what we do to end this here. So no 7-year-old child is raped after being removed from their loving home. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? We'll move to item 9. Ms. Rios, do you have another public comment? In that case, our next meeting will be on Monday, June.
I'm sorry, for public.
Oh, there is one.
One more. This is for public comment. Henry Marini, you have 2 minutes. Please follow the prompt to unmute.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just want to make sure this is for item number 9, broad public comments.
This is.
Okay, thank you. Yes, hi, my name is Henry. I want to speak on an event that actually happened a couple of months ago. It was at the Blue Building over at the Fountain Avenue location. And it has to do with 2 minor children running away from a religious institution. There's a broader issue in America where religious entities often are some of the biggest enablers and actually perpetrators of heinous criminal acts against children, and particularly broadly, but they hide behind the veil of religion in order to commit atrocities. There's a really interesting bill, Senate Bill 158, actually passed in the Utah legislature, where it mandates, and I think it would be wise for this board to push for such legislation. It mandates that every religious entity not only require to be conduct background checks on all of their staff, including volunteers, but also report those background checks to the state as well as federal agencies, as well as if those individuals are found of having a background with crimes against children, to be registered on the sex offender registries. The 2 children I mentioned actually were escaping from the Church of Scientology, and it's not the first time that this situation has happened. It was very quick response by LAPD to immediately swoop up those kids and immediately stop and suppress any communication. The entire event was publicly live streamed on video, and many survivors have actually shared their stories that this has happened exactly to them when they tried escaping as kids, and LAPD essentially swooped in, suppressed the entire story, and pretended like it never happened. You can contact me, info@filmthepoliceusa.com. Thank you.
Nothing further? Next meeting will be on Monday, June 9th, 10 a.m. It will be available prior to the meeting. Now 12:07 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Awesome. All right, bye.